Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. This is going to be a quick video that I'm going to do that might be like a four-part type of thing. Um, as you can tell by the title, it's to seal or not to seal. That's the question. So we're kind of talking about sealed albums here. I had a couple of comments on my last video that I did where some people had made some comments about some sealed albums. And I've gotten comments like that before, throughout just my years in the VC. Me and Mr. Mayo kind of had a video that he did like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. We kind of talked about the same topic. And so it just kind of came up, and I thought it would be a kind of a fun one to jump on board and just, do a video and just kind of talk about, plain and simple. And when I say comments too, just to clarify, nothing negative. There was no negative comments, just, us here in the VC talking about music and our collecting habits and all that. So it was nothing negative. I didn't want it to sound like I was saying that at all. But it was kind of a fun one. So I thought, maybe I'll do like a quick little series to do two things. Number one, show some sealed vinyl from maybe 3 or 4 different genres in my collection. So today I'm going to show, maybe 10 or so albums from like my metal section, my grunge and hard alternative section. So we'll kind of count that as one today, and then maybe do a couple of videos showing some from the other section. And on each video, just maybe taking a quick 4 minutes to 5 minutes at the very beginning, just to discuss and kind of share one aspect about sealed records, to seal or not to seal. Whether it's talking about like what's the point value of having a sealed record, does it damage your records, whatever. So we'll just kind of do one little quick topic at the beginning of each one of these videos. So that was just kind of my thought process. So I thought it'd be fun, so just kind of jump right into it. So I figured today what I would start out with is talking about the value of sealed records. And not value as in like monetary, but value as in like what's the point? Like where do you get value from having a sealed record? And what you typically find is that people that don't think you should keep records sealed, I think one of the common things you tend to hear is, you should open a record because it's about the music. And so what's the point of having a record and keeping it sealed if you're not listening to it, because it's about the music is what you typically hear. And again, I think it's true. Like pretty much everything we do, whether we're collecting music stuff and whatever else, I mean, it kind of all comes back to it being about the music. But I think there's some other aspects that come into play that we sometimes maybe skip over a little too quick. And so what I mean is the argument that people use to say it's about the music, so you should open your records. What I hear them saying when they say that is you should be opening those records and playing them and enjoying the music, enjoying having that record, owning that record. And of course, yes, I definitely believe it. I believe that. Well, where I believe the value comes into play for me for sealed records is there's more than one way to really, really enjoy an album. And just playing it is not the only way to truly enjoy a record. So probably the well, actually, let me start off by saying this. So the one thing that I don't like to do for myself, again, I have no issue with what anybody else does, because there's no wrong way to enjoy music or collect records and everything else. Whatever way you do it, in my book, is right if it makes you happy. Your money, your collection, you be happy with the way that it goes. That's all that matters to me. But like what I find for myself personally is, if I had a rule that said you have to open a record when you bring it in, like, to me that's just way too limiting. Because it's like, it's a rule and it's saying this is the moment I have to enjoy this album and this is how I have to enjoy it. I may bring an album home and sometimes I may open the album before I even leave the store, because that's how excited I am to dive into it. But that's in the moment where I want to receive joy from that album. I may bring the album home, maybe I keep it sealed for 2 years, and over the course of that 2 years, when I'm just flipping through my collection or going through things, I may pull that album out and I'm looking at it, I'm going through it, maybe it's gone out of print or whatever, or maybe it's not, but just, throwing something out there. And I'm thinking like, wow, this is just awesome. Just this beautiful, nice, mint sealed copy of this album. It's so freaking awesome to have this. That entire time I'm engaging with that album and everything else, I'm getting a very, very high level of joy as a music collector. The music collector side of me is getting a lot of joy from having that album. And having that sealed copy, looking at it, reading the notes through it, whatever else, putting it back in, knowing that I have that, brings me great, great joy to have that. And I may do that for 2 years. And then somewhere down the line, 2 years later, I go to that album. Ooh, I just feel what's going to give me joy today is opening this and spinning this. Like, so I've been getting 2 years of great joy of having it sealed. Now my joy comes to opening this album and actually seeing what's in it for the first time, and so I will open it. I may keep it sealed for 15 years, right? At the end of that 15 years, there's no rule that says, well, it's been sealed for 15 years. You can't open it now. It's been sealed. We're pushing 2 decades. So I have an urge. I want to open it now. So I will open it right then. Or if I keep it sealed and you've never spun that album the entire time you've had it, and you've had it in your collection, which, you know, hopefully 50 years, 60 years, did I get joy out of having it sealed that whole time? So it's just kind of like, for me personally, where that value comes from is just being able to enjoy the records when I want, how I want at that given moment. There's no rule of when to open a record. If you have to open a record, if you have to keep it sealed, because same thing, maybe I have a Grail that's sealed and everyone says, you can't open that. That's a sealed copy of Block. You can't open that. If that's going to bring me more joy than having it sealed today, yes, I will, because there's no rules on this thing. So I think all those other aspects is kind of where I get the value out of having sealed albums in my collection. And it's one of those things where I'm bringing in sealed albums, but then there's also, I'm frequently opening albums that have been sealed in my collection for quite some time too. I mean, I guess obviously you're not here when that happens, or I'm not making videos talking about it. But yeah, I always have stuff that come in that I keep sealed, and then stuff that I end up opening that's been sealed for 2 years, it's been sealed for 3 years, just because I just get the urge. And I think the easiest way to really kind of do a comparison of that to show the place where that value is coming from, maybe for someone who doesn't connect with it the way I just described, I almost equate it to having money in the bank. It's almost the exact same thing, right? It's like, maybe for those of you out there that, you know, you're working hard, you're trying to get ahead and everything else, but if I came to you right now and said, hey, kind of stay within your spending habits, you know, don't change your life too much, but just so I can make sure you're secure, you know, I won the lottery the other day, I'm going to put $2 million in your bank account, you know, just so you have that cushion when you need it. You know, you may do a few things, but for the most part, just don't change your life too much right now. Just know you have that comfort. Most people would say they feel different. Most people would have some level of excitement and, you know, just relief or more optimism or whatever by just knowing we got $2 million in the bank to enhance our cushion, and that feels pretty freaking good. You haven't spent a single dollar of it. Like, you haven't actually spent the money. Money's like we use it for spending, exchanging goods and services. You haven't spent any of it. It's just sitting there. So until you go spend the money, that's not going to bring you any joy. It's not going to bring you any relief. It's not going to bring you any happiness. It's not going to. And again, I think most of you would say, no, there would be some relief and some happiness that I would feel by knowing I got that solid $2 million nest egg. You would get something from it, even though you're not spending. Yeah, that's a good one. Spending the money. So exact same thing with a sealed album. It can feel like, just to compare emotions, money in the bank that makes you feel good just because it's there and you know it's there and you can look at your statement and see it, and even though you're not spending it, it makes you feel good. Same level. I hope that makes sense. I'm kind of rambling around, but so anyway, so now let's jump to, like I said, we'll go over another topic next time around sealed albums. But so I think 10 or 11 pieces I pulled out here from the metal, hard alternative, and grunge categories that are still sealed. The one is what's playing in the background. You see the CD there, Blackened, which maybe I should mention that too. With 95% of every sealed album I have the CD and I have cassettes and blah blah blah. So there's no music that I don't listen to because I'm keeping something sealed and don't have a copy of something to play. That almost never happens because, again, even with enjoying the sealed thing, all of this stuff is about the music. Okay, so Machine Head, The Blackening. Picked this up a number of years ago, and I like it's like 2007, something like that. But again, this is just like, I don't know, there's just something about having a sealed copy of this. I just love having a sealed copy of it, and it brings so much more happiness to me than I can think about opening it and playing it instead of the CD. So I've kept it sealed, but fantastic album. And again, that's what's playing in the background there. Next one here, a little Slipknot Volume 3. This is at 2008 US pressing. I think it was like a collector's edition, like 2,000 copies of them were made. So again, a fantastic piece. I wasn't listening to as much Slipknot when this came out. And at the same time too, it's a great album. So don't get me wrong there, it's a fantastic album. There's probably one or two Slipknot albums I will listen to before this one, but just for whatever reason, it kind of came in and I just never had the urge to open it, which I'm kind of glad now because it has turned into quite the grail, so that's a nice piece as well. And this is a prime example too of just about timing and enjoyment determining opening an album, because Godsmack is my absolute favorite band. You guys know that. And this is 1,000 Horsepower. If I would have gotten this like right around the time the album came out, I would have opened it before I even left the parking lot of the store. But I got the CD first. I listened to the album a gazillion times. I think I even saw them on tour for this before I ever came around and got the album. So by the time I actually picked up the vinyl, I'd already listened to the album and knew it very well. I'd already determined that it was my, the Oracle's probably my least favorite Godsmack album, and this one will be the second of my least favorite. I still love them all, but just when you have to put them in order, this would be second from the bottom. And so when I did get it, I was just like, I don't have a strong desire to have to open it. Know the album very well. It's not the first one I'm going to go to all the time, and but still a very good album. I mean, it's Godsmack. Now this is one that a lot of people here, I'm sure, would say not only why haven't you opened it, but why did you buy it in the first place? Which is Saint Anger by Metallica. And this is an original pressing, steel sealed, which is really awesome. But again, when I got this album, I'd already really been listening to the album. I had the CD and the DVD, and had watched the documentary, the making of, I don't know how many times. So picking this up really wasn't an overwhelming urge to have to spin it. But nice to have a nice sealed OG pressing of that. And I have always said about this album, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree, because again, there's a lot of hatred that comes towards this. But I firmly believe that if this album would have been put out by another band, especially if it was like their debut album, this album would have been all the rage. I firmly believe that. Even with Lars' snare drum and all the stuff that we say about this album, your Rolling Stone writers who need to be cool, and I can't stand Rolling Stone. They get on my nerves so much it's not even funny. But those would have been some of the individuals that, taking Metallica's name off of it, it would have been, oh, something so fresh and so new to the metal world, and it just sounds so raw and not really overproduced, and it's like they're just playing in a garage and blah 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 blah. So fresh. But as soon as you put Metallica across the front of it, it was like, oh, this sucks, this is horrible, this is blah blah blah. Again, some people will still feel the way they feel about it, don't get me wrong, but I just think overwhelmingly a lot of the reviews on that level would have been more favorable from some brand new band putting out the exact same album. But again, I liked it myself, and I still love it to this day. I think it's a great album. Here we have Nirvana Nevermind. And this is probably a great example for this video because my entire Nirvana collection is sealed. Bleach, In Utero, Nevermind, Unplugged, I mean on and on and on. Every single one of my Nirvana LPs are sealed. And this is a nice Classic Records copy too, which is pretty nice. And I would like to know if anyone has some information on this. I can't seem to locate this. Nothing in Discogs. I just had trouble finding any information on it. So if anyone kind of, has one, let me know what you know, where you found it, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, but for me, one of the reasons why my entire Nirvana collection is sealed is because by the time I got to buying Nirvana stuff, as far as on vinyl, Nirvana was kind of that next Led Zeppelin type of thing. Where if you ask me, is Led Zeppelin 4 one of the greatest classic rock albums of all time, song for song from front to back? Yes, it is amazing. Is Stairway to Heaven one of the most amazing classic rock songs of all time? Yes, it belongs right up there. No way you're going to make me sit and listen to Stairway to Heaven if your life depended on it. Like, that's not happening because it's just so played out and beat into your head from the time you were this high. I can maybe listen to Led Zeppelin 4 once a year, maybe. And so I'm kind of at that same point with Nirvana. Legendary, mega albums, incredible hits. One of the few times in history that most of us will have the opportunity to watch a band turn the musical bus, kind of in just the culture of musical history. Like, the Beatles came along, they turned it. Elvis Presley came along, he turned it. You don't get to see that very often. But Nirvana and NWA, they came along and turned it, and a number of us got to live through and actually see that. So just being that big, but by the time I started collecting the vinyl, yes, I wanted it, I love them, but this is not something I can sit and listen to all the time. So it was easy for me to keep my Nirvana collection sealed. Oddly enough, when I want to listen to them, I typically go to cassette, of all things, not even CD, but it's one of those things. I just showed this in a recent video, so I won't go into too much detail about that, but this is Korn, self-titled, from 2007. I had the CD first, then I picked up that album, and good album, but it wasn't going to automatically take the place of maybe some of my more favorite Korn albums, with like Freak on the Leash and all that type of stuff, so I just never had the overwhelming urge to open that one. Schizophrenia by Sepultura, another really great album, and this is one I don't go to too often, even though it is a good album. It's just when I usually go reach for Sepultura, I'm just always naturally drawn to Chaos AD and Arise and Roots and all of that. But there's just a few of their albums that I have to actually make sure I intentionally focus on pulling out and playing, and this just hasn't been one. But I do have the CD, and I spun that a few times, but again, just haven't had the urge on that one yet. Starcrossed Wasteland by In This Moment, another nice sealed copy of that. Love the band, so glad they put this out on vinyl. But when you really get down to it, 80% of the time when I go to listen to In This Moment, I'm always going towards their first album, and I spin that album all the time. But this one, I just don't go to as often, and when I do want to hear, The Road or Gun Show or something like that, the CD is, just fine. And on top of that too, I do kind of know somewhat on a subconscious level, the fact that this is on, it says, limited edition colored vinyl. The fact that it's on colored vinyl and I'm not a huge fan of colored vinyl is probably something that subconsciously takes away my anxiousness to need to open the album too. I'm sure that plays a little role in that. But the day I do get the urge, I will. 9 Inch Nails, Downward Spiral. This is the Back to Black pressing of this from 2008. And this is another great example of just kind of going with how it feels to me, because I've always loved this album. I remember when I first bought this, I was so excited to find it on vinyl, because this was the early years of my vinyl collecting. So even then, I didn't know anything about pressings, OG pressings, like that had absolutely no meaning, and can't even say I even had heard the term up to that point in time. I didn't care about, frankly, I didn't care about condition. I was nowhere in the collecting phase beyond just getting the records that I wanted. And even then, this stayed sealed throughout all that time frame, because it just wasn't a moment where I had an overwhelming urge to have to open it and pull it out. So I think that was actually going on for me even before I became more of a, like, the collector that I am now. And these last two are kind of interesting. Creed, Human Clay. This was the first pressing of this. They've had a couple of reissues that have come out over the past 2 years or so, but this was a first pressing. And again, when I got it, I've been listening to Creed for so long and enjoying them so much. This was just more of a, I'm so happy to have it on vinyl. Didn't have an overwhelming urge to have to open it. But Creed, I mean, I wish they would get around to reissuing all of Creed's stuff. And I know that's probably like a horror movie to a lot of you here in the VC, because Creed is one of those bands where it's just, people just like to hate them, you know, which is fine. Of course, everyone has their taste, so that's kind of what talking about and sharing music is all about, is things we like, things we don't like. I love Creed myself. I think Creed was awesome. I mean, they were pop, hard alternative, but to me, that's also the thing that made them just the amazing band that they were, which was, it's not an easy task to be able to go that full and heavy from a guitar perspective, to go that much with just consistently making anthem type of songs, and yet having so much emotion connected to all their songs, like ballad type emotions connected to music that big and that heavy and that full and that anthemy. That's not, we may not like it, like people may not like their music, but that's not an easy thing to do at all. And Creed did it time after time after time after time after time. And I think they deserve a heck of a lot of credit for that. I mean, I guess their success is, you know, that's kind of the credit they got. But for me, that's one of the things that I think made Creed pretty freaking awesome. So I would love if they would go back and, you know, like My Own Prison, especially that one. If I could just have even one to choose from, if they did My Own Prison. Now, they did do the Greatest Hits. You know, the Greatest Hits album, they did a Walmart exclusive of that about 2 years ago. And I actually bought 3 copies of that, which was nice, because I knew it was going to grail overnight. I knew that was going to happen. So I ordered 3 of them from Walmart. I ended up selling 1 of them online, and I sold the one to where I made back, I think, almost everything I spent. Like $15, I think, was the difference between what I spent for all 3 and what I got for that one. So that way I was able to have a sealed copy of the Greatest Hits and a listening copy. So I was really happy about that. But again, I would love for them to get at least My Own Prison. I would love to see that pressed on vinyl. And last but not least, I'm going to go with Fuel. This is Sunburn. Another album that I really fell in love with. This came out in '98. And I do remember this, and it's kind of ironic that these 2 albums were side by side, because it wasn't Human Clay, but My Own Prison. I got a brand new Mustang back in 1998, and I remember I had to, you know, switch stuff out of my car really quick, or my truck, I should say, at the time, and I had to go to work that night and all of that. So the only 2 CDs I grabbed, I left my truck at my parents' place, which was like 30 miles away. So the only 2 CDs I grabbed were Fuel Sunburn and Creed My Own Prison. So for a week or so before I went back to my parents' place, I just kind of been listening to those 2 CDs over and over, and the connection with the new Mustang and how excited I was and everything. Every time I listen to either one of those albums, it just takes me back to that time of, whew, brand new wheels, cherry red Mustang. So, but yeah, I was very excited when this album I saw was pressed on vinyl, and picked it up a number of years ago. It was only like, I think, $16 or $17 at the time. Which I'm actually surprised I didn't open this one, because I was so excited to get it. But yeah, so that's another one. But yeah, so there you go, VC. That's kind of the part 1 of maybe 2 or 3 parts that we'll see here. So again, let me know down below how you personally feel about the whole sealed vinyl thing. And again, I would like to know how you feel about it in your collection, much more so than telling other people how they should feel about it because of what they do. So if you can again just kind of tell me more so about how you approach it, how it makes you feel, that would be a lot more interesting. So as always, thanks for watching, guys, and we will talk to you soon.